Transfer portal is a crazy world. Just keeps spinning. LSU has done some work in the portal over the last 7 days or so. Two of those additions coming from Oklahoma: Bauer, sharp tight end, and Nick Anderson, wide receiver. Figured we're going to learn about those. Might as well go to somebody who's actually watched them play a lot. Brandon Drum covers Oklahoma for Rivals. OU Insider joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Brandon, we appreciate the time. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing quite well. I know things are just as hectic up there in Norman as they are down here in Baton Rouge, but wanted a little bit of time to talk about those two guys. So first, Bauer Sharp. I think the main thing LSU fans know about him is that he might make ill-advised pass attempts on double throws, but there's probably more to his game than just that. What can you tell us about the tight end who was at Oklahoma for a year?
Well, he was at Southeast Louisiana to begin with,
yeah.
So he's from those parts. He's an athlete, former quarterback. He's a great athlete. I mean, he was probably utilized in the wrong way at Oklahoma. They used him quite a bit as kind of a split zone blocker and all those type of deals. But he's more of a split out. He's more of a guy that's gonna. No, I want to get this straight. He did get better at blocking as the year went on, and I think everybody saw that. I think you all saw that at LSU as well. But he's a fantastic athlete, can make difficult catches. He's just new to the tight end position. So I think if he had another year at Oklahoma, particularly with Ben Arbuckle, I think he would have been super successful. He reminded me quite a bit of I'm trying to think of a good analogy here for you. I mean, look, I don't know that he is as athletic as Braden Willis was at Oklahoma, but he's up there. So he has a lot of those similarities to me. Just a really strong athlete, really good player, new to the position. So you guys will have some up and downs with him, but he's going to make some plays where you just sit there and scratch your head and say, how the hell did he do that too?
Yeah, Brian Kelly, when he talked about him, said, yeah, he's a good pass catcher, good athlete, but we really like what he does in the run game as far as blocking, because LSU quite literally had nobody on the roster once Mason Taylor declared for the draft, and their other tight end went to the transfer portal. So they had one guy who's a former basketball player that's basically just a wide receiver.
He got better, but I've watched him completely whiff as he's a lead blocker, split zone, just like literally watch a linebacker run right by him, and then he tries to go to the second level, and the play goes for no gain. So he was a work in progress. So I think you guys are going to get the best part of him. So kudos to LSU for that. Oklahoma got the ill-advised throws, the tight end screens against Ole Miss type deal, the fumbles. They got the headaches. You guys are probably going to get the all-conference version that everybody thought he was going to be when he showed up. And I mean, he flashed all spring and all fall. Such high expectations for him, and he just didn't live up to it. I think he probably will at LSU, to be honest.
Well, this past year, obviously not the offensive effort that Oklahoma was looking for. But if you go back 2 years ago, things were a lot better when Dylan Gabriel was throwing around and Nick Anderson was making 10 touchdown catches. He's now coming to LSU after missing all but 2 games this past year. What can you tell us about Nick Anderson?
He's a freak. He was a underutilized player out of high school. He came from Katy, which they just ran the ball the whole time. He's a big pass catcher. He's a guy that can be a playmaker for LSU. Honestly, like he fits the mold of what you all are used to at the wide receiver position, particularly with like your outside guys. He just kind of has the injury thing with him, though. I think he's only had 1 year, much like his brother. Right, Rodney Anderson had that special year at Oklahoma in 2017 and then was injured again and kind of jetted off to the NFL after that. But just had the injury bug, couldn't stay healthy with his hip. And before that, he had kind of a knee problem and then a hamstring problem and all that type of stuff. So that's kind of something you guys are going to have to worry about a little bit with Nick Anderson. But at the same time, when he's healthy, he is probably one of the better wide receivers in the country. So there's that. It's kind of hit or miss. It's boom or bust with him. But look, everybody seems to go away from Oklahoma, and they always end up doing better than what they did. in Norman. That's usually the case, right, with the transfer portal. So my hunch is that you're going to get the 2023 version of Nick Anderson healthy and making big plays for the Tigers. And if that's the case, you're going to have an all SEC wide receiver.
A lot of that's very, very good to hear. I know a lot of folks in Norman ready to get to the end of that regular season that came to a close against LSU. What are the last 3 weeks been like for Brent Venables and that football program?
Chaotic. As you all know, the number one player in the portal is in Norman right now, John Mateer. I expect him to be a Sooner. So that's big news. Oklahoma should end up with a couple of other offensive tackle pickups here pretty soon. Some big wide receiver pickups here pretty soon. I think Isaiah Satania will be a big one they get here pretty soon as well. And then on top of that, they got a couple of big name defensive tackles that are in. One of the top defensive tackles in James Thompson in the portal is in Norman, or will be in Norman tomorrow, along with Corey Robinson, one of the top offensive tackles in the portal. I expect Derek Simmons out of Western Carolina to end up a Sooner. He's, I think, the 23rd overall portal player on Rivals. So they're doing well in the portal. They needed it. It's just been hectic with the offensive coordinator stuff and obviously the portal and, the National Signing Day and obviously the bowl game. Much like you guys, it's been chaotic and just a whirlwind for everybody that covers college football.
It has certainly been that. We appreciate you being flexible with us and taking a little bit of time. I'll let you get back to it. Thanks, Brandon.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Brandon Drum, OU insider, part of the Rivals Network, covering the Sooners. I didn't want to spend 15, 20 minutes talking about all that stuff with him because I feel like you can pretty much hit the high notes there. But I felt like those answers, if you're an LSU fan, were pretty encouraging. I think he countered Brian Kelly's thoughts on Bauer Sharp a little bit. When you, I spend more time probably than I should, quite frankly, but I do spend a lot of time listening to podcasts and watching YouTube videos from other beat writers around the league. I think it helps me to form opinions and to kind of stay up on news. I know Matt does it for Around the SEC on AFR, and I try to do it so that I'm as informed as I can be. And Brandon and his crew at OU Insider is who I lean on for Oklahoma. And I think they do a really, really good job. And they talked about Bauer Sharp a lot. And I think it's probably twofold because, one, they thought he was really, really good in the spring and they thought he would have a huge impact. And then, including Nick Anderson, their 4 top wide receiver options got hurt. And when that happened, you started to look around like, who can we throw the ball to? And Bauer Sharp was the guy that they could throw the ball to. And consequently, he led the team in catches. He's really athletic. And I think that's the highlight of his game. But Brian Kelly gets on his press conference and he goes, "This guy can really block." And Brandon's going, "Well, I've watched him, and he can sometimes, and then sometimes he whiffs." And that's just comes with learning the position. You're not pulling in, I can't even think of who the best example of an elite blocking tight end is. I mean, I think if you're like LSU, like Dylan Gordon and Chase Claymaw were pretty good blocking tight ends in the Les Miles era, but you're not getting that. And I don't know that anybody really wants that this day and age. I think you want a guy with a little bit more athleticism, but LSU's got to have somebody that can help out on the edges to throw some blocks. And there were far too many times this past year where LSU asked a tight end, generally outside of Mason Taylor, to help with something down there, and it just didn't materialize. So I think Bauer Sharp can help with that, but if you listen to Brandon, maybe it's going to be a work in progress, and they'll have to continue to teach that. But he is big, he is physical, he's old, so hopefully he can pick that up pretty quickly. The Nick Anderson answers were, if you're an LSU fan, that's exactly what you want to hear. And I haven't talked about Nick Anderson today because I feel like I talked about him significantly yesterday as a potential add to what's already a really good wide receiver situation. If you'd like to read more about the entire wide receiver situation, I've got a column up on LouisianaSports.net right now that talks about LSU's wide receiver checklist being complete. I think they've rounded out that room incredibly nicely, and Nick Anderson was the missing piece. You needed a 6'4", potential number 1 possession-type receiver. I know what the upside is on Berrien Brown. I know what the upside is on Chris Hilton. I know how good Aaron Anderson is when he's not the primary option. I know all these things. I think Kyle Parker can be a pretty good player. I think that they have a couple of freshmen they believe in this class, in Phillip Wright and Teron Francis. I think there is reason to be optimistic about a lot of these guys, but I don't feel like I can slap a number one tag on any of those guys as of yesterday. Anderson's not there because he did miss the whole year with a hip/quad injury that may have been misdiagnosed, and it cost him 10 games. And I don't know what the status of that is right now. I don't. But I know he caught 10 touchdowns in Oklahoma freshman record 2 years ago, and I watched the tape on that. He's beating one-on-one coverage. He's high-pointing the ball. He's getting open on deep routes and outrunning people. He's making catches around the line of scrimmage and making guys miss. He caught the game winner against Texas. He's legit. All that was as a freshman. But is he healthy? If he is, you're listening to Brandon and first words out of his mouth where, well, he's a freak. So I'm very, very bullish on what this wide receiver room is now. If you read my piece 3 weeks ago on LouisianaSports.net about portal needs, I pointed to wide receiver really quickly because a wide receiver room that has Kyle Parker and Xavier Thomas and Aaron Anderson and Jelani Watkins is not going to get it done. Those guys can play in the SEC. I don't want to put them in the same breath as the elite wide receivers that have come through LSU. And Nick Anderson's not there. And I'm not here to tell you that Nick Anderson and Barry Brown and Chris Hilton and Aaron Anderson as a 1, 2, 3, 4 is the same as having Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Terrace Marshall. I'm not here to tell you it's the same as having Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas and Kyron Lacey. I don't think it's quite that level, but that's the top of the top. I think this is quality enough if you're LSU, but it needed that number one guy. And to talk to Brandon and hear him say that he could be one of the best wide receivers in the country, that he could be a first-team All-SEC guy, that's what you're looking for. And this was a really good sell for LSU. Think about the guys you brought in the transfer portal. You bring in Destin Hill from Florida State at wide receiver. They were the worst passing team in the ACC this year, the worst. You bring in Barry and Brown from Kentucky. They have been in the bottom 3 in the SEC in passing and the top 2 in interceptions all 3 years Barry and Brown's been in college. And then you look at Nick Anderson, and Oklahoma was the worst passing team in the SEC this year. So they all come from absolute dysfunctional messes, and they're coming into a ready-made offense that knows how to throw the football. They've got a fifth-year senior quarterback who's going to be the second best single season in LSU passing history. They've got now a full complement of wide receivers, Trades Green and Bauer Sharp at tight end, bringing in J.D. LaFleur, and you've got talent at running back as well. You got to shore up the offensive line. That'll be something I talk about probably on tomorrow's show with what LSU needs to do moving forward. But I think this is a good-looking wide receiver group, and I think that you've got a passing offense now that you should be able to lean on. And I've said that. Like, I don't think that LSU is going to be a dominant run team in 2025. I don't. If they are, and I'm dead wrong, I'll be thrilled. But I don't think that's going to happen. They're going to need to lean on the pass a good bit. And that's okay. You can throw the ball and win championships. But you can't throw the ball and win championships if you don't have really good wide receivers. And I think now they have the potential to have really good wide receivers. And that was the goal as of 9 days ago, and that's what they've accomplished here in the transfer portal in Baton Rouge. All right, I appreciate Brandon Drum from OU Insider for jumping aboard. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.